No problem, we got
Um,
it.
all right, I just hope we, sorry if we missed the first
No,
half.
you know what, we got some key pictures, we'll add to it.
Okay, okay. So this is a Google Earth picture of Ethiopia. You can see how little tiny pieces of forest are all that's left, which is kind of scary. And that's why Vic is going to talk after me, because you know what? You can't be a scientist really and hope that all the forests get saved. It costs money. It means that we have to combine science with business and finance and all that kind of thing. And if you're a kid in Ethiopia, like these folks are, it's really hard. They don't have a lot of income to put into saving their forests, but it's a global treasure. So we all have to think hard about how can we save these forests. In the case of Ethiopia, we're actually funding walls. Stone conservation walls are keeping the cattle from eating the trees and the seedlings and keeping people from cutting the trees down in the middle of the night. So that's become pretty important. And I'm going to let Vic talk a little bit about secret number 5, if he can read it, because our screen is a little funny.
Well, thank you, Meg. I wanted to ask the children whether they know how many people live on this earth at the moment. Do they know that?
Great question. Does anybody have any idea how many people live on the earth? Payne, what's your idea? Oh, 8 billion is our guess.
That's a very, very good guess. It's in fact correct. And do you know what a billion is?
Oh, I think
A billion is 1,000 million.
yeah.
That's how big that number is. And you know, in 2050, there's actually going to be 15 billion people living on the earth.
Oh.
So you've got this big problem where there are so many people coming to be born, and there is just a limited amount of earth around. So you've got this continuous fight between people who are growing and expanding and the natural resources that we have available to us. So we need to find a way to make people live comfortably whilst at the same time preserving all of these trees, because as Meg said, food, water, all of those things come really from the trees. And in order to do that, we need to finance essential parts of conservation in a way that is not going to be in conflict to the number of people that are growing in the volume of people growing in the world. There's a facility outside of New York in the Catskill Mountains where people were going to build a water treatment plant for about $6 billion. And instead of doing that, the people around that area decided to buy the land for $1.5 billion. And so the water comes naturally from that area into New York City and is probably the purest water that you can find. And it is done for about a quarter of the cost of what it would normally have been. So knowing financing and knowing how to finance sensibly is an essential part of this, because as you saw from Meg, all of those pieces of equipment, the cranes, the hot air balloons, all of that stuff costs enormous amounts of money for people to be able to study all of these things. And that money comes from business, it comes from governments, and it comes from donations from people as well. So part of the job really in the financing of all of these things is to know how to access and know how to pay for and know how to determine where the money is going, because people only give money if they know exactly what the plan is, what the success is going to be, and where it is going to lead. So it's really important for every scientist when they go asking for money that they know what the plan is, what the outcome is going to be, and how to present that to a board, to a charity, to whomever is going to help support that kind of a funding. So important to know that all of this fun and great stuff that Meg does and the scientific work that she does costs a great deal of money. So whoever is going to be interested in that going forward should really know how to pay for that and understand the whole complex together. So that's what I have to say. Oh, just one more thing here. So the 20% of the global fresh water comes from, Amazon forest conservation. It is the greatest biodiversity on Earth. and it controls our climates in a way that we cannot begin to describe. If you cut all of these trees down, the earth would be uninhabitable. And people in the Amazon are going out there and they're cutting trees down in order to grow maize, to grow corn, to raise cattle, and so on and so forth. And we really should find a way to pay these people not to cut down trees and make sure that, because ultimately we would have a moon landscape here. And Meg is basically one of the people that spent some months in that biosphere that cost $1 billion just to learn how to live with fake air and so on and so forth. So we need to make sure that this Amazon forest and all of association with conservation is taken care of. Otherwise, we're going to end up like, as I say, a moon landscape. So that's what I have to say.
So there we go. We're ready for questions.
That's awesome. Thank you for pointing out that all kinds of skill sets are needed for this. We need scientists, people are curious. We need people who know how to be successful in business, who also care about this for our planet. That is great. I know we have some questions for both of you, and I think I'm going to ask Drake to go ahead and ask your question first, because I think it's related to what we were just talking about. So can you unmute, honey, and ask your question?
What is a good estimate of how much money you need now?
Ooh, what is a good estimate of how much money we would need right now? That's a great question. Great question.
What you really have to do, you can't just say a big number. You really have to choose projects and break all of these things down into projects. I mean, if you really wanted to save the Amazon forest, for example, you would probably need several $1 billion for that, because you really want to go in there and tell the farmers, stop cutting down the trees, stop growing corn, stop growing cattle, stop growing pigs, whatever it is that you grow by cutting down these trees. So that would probably be several $1 billion. In your neighborhood, I'm sure there's a project where you could clean up the water, for example, in your river, where you probably only need, maybe $1,500. So breaking it down into all of these projects is probably the way to look at it, as opposed to, me telling you we probably need $50 billion to do this, because that is kind of meaningless in a way if you don't have a specific objective in mind.
And also, if you are interested, you can go on my website and look at the Ethiopia project for about $200,000. We're going to save the 40 highest biodiverse forests. That is very cheap compared to what Vic just said about the Amazon. And the reason for that is the cost of living there is very inexpensive. And we're getting free stone and free labor and just paying for gates and paying for a little donation to the church to keep the walls. So there are many different costs depending on the culture and the country and the actual problem. But all in told, Vic's right that every project has a different cost, and you just need to make a business plan, which is what business people do better than scientists.
Okay, thank you. I think we'll just follow up on those questions a little bit, and then I know we have some questions for Dr. Lowman. Ava, I'm going to ask you to ask your question, honey. Okay.
Do you think that business people understand the importance of saving forest?
Can you just say that one more time, please?
Do you think that business people understand the importance of saving forest?
Oh, I do. To be honest with you, I really think that saving forests is not, when you talk to business people like me, we all have children and grandchildren, and they love to go into the woods, and they love to go canoeing, and they love to go fishing, and they love to do all of those things. And so everybody in the world, I honestly think, is got some kind of cultural interest in making sure that our country, our land, and our forests are preserved. It's you know, a continual fight, you know, because some business people think, well, if I build something in Alaska, it's not going to harm me in Georgia. But ultimately, I think all business people have a very strong interest in making sure that that our forests and landscape is preserved. Yes, I do.
Oh, Nancy's muted again.
Sorry. Liz, go ahead with your question, honey.
If we save the tree,
You know, honey, why don't you take your mask down?
well,
Thank you.
if we save the trees and the rainforest, will we save the unknown species?
Oh, what a great question. Absolutely. If we save where all the species live, we will definitely save the species. And if we actually cut the forest down, we might lose species before we even find them or discover them or know they exist. So that's one of the big problems right now is forests get cleared, that we don't know what species we're losing. So we do indeed need to save the trees and enough forests to keep hopefully species that could be medicines or could be important pollinators and things that are important for your future.
Caden, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and ask your question, honey. Okay. Yes. Can you ask your question, hon?
What is your favorite animal?
Oh my gosh, I'll go first. What's your favorite animal? You go second. That is such a hard question. Obviously, you know I love water bears, so I'm going to cheat and start with them. But I guess I really, really love animals that eat leaves, and so that would be the sloth or the koala for animals, and of course millions and millions of insects. So there, I got to mention 4. So I really did kind of stretch that answer a bit, but I don't know if Vic has a favorite.
As you can hear from my funny accent, I actually come from Africa. And so my favorite animal there is an elephant, although elephants do cause really, really big damage to trees. I mean, they just walk around and knock them over because they like to get the leaves right at the top of the tree. So yes, I love elephants, but we have to find a way to control them as well.
They're some leaf feeders.
Yes, they are.
Oh my gosh, how cool.
Lydia, go ahead. Could you ask one of your questions, honey? Your choice.
How did you feel when you seen the California wildfires?
Oh, could you repeat that, please?
How did you feel when you seen the California wildfires?
That's a great question. And, you know, I was working in California a few years ago when the fires started, although they really have been going on for quite a while. It's tragic about fires. It's not just California, it's been Australia and the Amazon and Siberia. And a little bit of what's happening is sometimes fires are good for certain amounts of maybe helping forests prune the dead wood or take the old trees away. But what we're finding is as people influence the climate, and especially as we pollute more carbon dioxide, we're creating a lot more dry conditions, and that's making fires around the world hotter and more frequent. So it's really a sad thing, and it's quite scary for humans who live near forests, and it's obviously going to take hundreds of years for the species and the trees to recover from all of these forest fires. Oh, Nancy's muted again.
Do you still travel around the world?
Well, no, neither of us have traveled much at all. Right now with COVID, it's not possible. So all of the conservation and science work that I do is either writing or Zooming or doing some very different kinds of projects, not being out in the middle of the jungle or the forest.
Or Antarctica.
Oh, right. Maybe we go to Antarctica. Somewhere where, but I'm just, it's been a very difficult time for anybody to travel to some of these places.
Lucy, I'm going to ask you to go, honey. I know you've got a good question or two.
How is it like in Ethiopia?
Well, it's actually very, very humbling. I wish you could all go there and see the kids. You know, one of the projects I've been doing is giving books about trees to the kids there. And I meet kids who are your age and they've never owned even one book in their life. They've never even owned a pencil. And so they get so happy about receiving this gift. So there's quite a different way of life. On the other hand, the kids know a lot about their trees. They know a lot about playing outdoors because they certainly don't have a television indoors. So it's a very, very different kind of life from yours. But I hope you get to go there someday and you would really enjoy seeing the amazing and beautiful scenery there if you ever do go there.
Jaden, go ahead.
What's in your toolkit?
Oh my gosh. Well, I'll answer that and then Vic can answer that. But my toolkit has a rope and a harness and a slingshot and a helmet and a notebook and a camera and maybe some vials and a few butterfly nets. And if I'm lucky, I might get a canopy walkway in one of my research sites so that I can add that to my toolkit. So as a field biologist, I have to think about ways to get up the tree and collect the information when I'm up there.
So tell them what you do with a slingshot.
Oh, right. That's a good. So with a slingshot, I have to get the rope up on the branch, right? How do we get the rope up the tree to climb it? Well, the slingshot allows me to put a fish line over a high branch. And then the fish line is strong enough to pull a little nylon cord, and then the nylon cord is strong enough to pull the climbing rope. So we need to have a gadget that puts the rope safely up in the tree. So that is pretty important. That's why I really like canopy walkways, because I don't have to, I can just walk out into the treetops instead of doing all that work of rigging the tree beforehand. So what's in your toolkit?
I have a calculator and a pencil. That's what I have in my toolkit. I'm afraid that's all I have.
How's that? So not as complicated as you thought.
Peyton, I'm going to ask you to ask your question, honey.
How did you come up with the idea of the toolkit?
Oh my gosh. Well, you know, that's a great question because I grew up pretty close to you in upstate New York, actually a small town called Elmira. And I just remember really being amazed that the leaves fall every year. In fact, probably right now there are no leaves on the trees, right?
Yeah.
Almost winter. And they were beautiful and red and yellow in the fall. And when I got to the tropical rainforest, it was green all year round for 12 months. I couldn't believe that. So it made me ask a question like, how come these leaves are so different? And in order to figure out what the leaves were doing in these trees that were 200 and 300 feet tall, I had to figure out how to get up there. So that's what led me to realize that I had to create a toolkit. I probably spent half my time inventing equipment as much as I did collecting information because I had to figure out safe ways to get up there. And it was kind of fun, to tell you the truth.
Peyton, could you just, I know we have time for just one more, and Peyton, could you ask the other question you have to finish up?
What can kids do to get bankers and business people interested in saving forests?
What can kids do?
To
Well, I guess your parents are the ones that you need to poke, right? I mean, you need to go to your parents. I'm sure most of your parents are pretty much on board with this anyway, because they take you to all these wonderful places, whether it's walks in the woods or canoeing or to the beach or wherever it is that they take you. I mean, I'm sure they appreciate what they're seeing and what they're showing you. And they understand full well that unless we preserve all of this, it's going to be gone in 30 or 40 years, which is just about the time when all of you are going to have children of your own. And it's very sad to think that, you know, that we may have lost everything because we haven't been paying attention to this today. So just keep reminding your parents, although I'm sure it's not necessary because I'm sure they're aware of it, that, you know, whatever it is that they're doing, it's going to impact you and your children going forward in the next 10, 20 or 30 years. So it's really crucial that we get this under control now, as opposed to waiting before it's too late, because you can't turn back that clock. You can stop it going forward, but you won't be able to turn it back once it's too late. Once the trees are gone, it's too late. I mean, we'll all be dead, I'm afraid to say. We just won't have enough air to breathe. The earth will be too hot to live on. And so it's important that we catch this now and stop it now rather than wait until it's too late, as I say.
And you know, kids have a great voice. Sometimes adults listen to kids more than they listen to other adults. So if you do have businesses in town or corporate organizations, you should try to work with them. See if you can create a tree planting project or a nature walk or a conservation area. I bet you'd be surprised how willing they might be to partner with all of the kids in your school. So it's a great chance that you have maybe to have a voice too.
So we want to be really respectful of your time, and we know we've used 30 minutes, but I just have one more quick question for you. Normally, we are so happy to be able to support your tree foundation by doing a school-wide penny drive. And unfortunately, just due to all of our COVID restrictions, all of the handling of money is not something that we can do this particular year, but we do have an idea that we wanted to run past you, so you can even think about it and get back to us. Would it be helpful? Is there any place we could write letters to in support of your project, like maybe specifically raising money for Ethiopia? Would having kids' voices be helpful in any grant activity or writing to any corporation? We would throw that out to you.
Absolutely. Why don't I get back to you, Nancy? But I'm thinking already, maybe we could create a photo album where kids could do drawings and talk about the importance of trees. I feel like there's an opportunity, and I'm sensitive to your need of having these remote projects. So we will definitely brainstorm and send you an idea.
Great, because we would love to support your wonderful work. We're all so grateful for it and all you're doing for our planet. So we thank you for your time, and we thank you for your wonderful work, and we look forward to finding a way that we can support it. Okay.
Thanks so much.
All right, you guys, what do we say? You can unmute and say thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.